Now then, are you ready to discover how a single tank could have turned the tide of the entire war, but never did? Let's begin. The curse of the 34, or the German ghost that should have been Stalin's nightmare. Picture the autumn of 1941, the Eastern Front. The boundless Russian expanses, which in summer were fertile mud, now transform into an impassable autumnal quagmire, and soon after, into a wintry, icy desert. The German Panzer tanks, which just yesterday triumphantly marched across Europe, now stall, break down, and burn. They burn from shells fired by a new, previously unseen machine that German tank crews, in their reports, begin calling with respectful dread. The Black Death, or simply the Russians' wonder weapon. This is the T-34, not just a tank. It is a symbol of an entire nation's resilience, clenched into a steel fist. Its silhouette, swift, lean, with angular sloped armor, would forever be etched into the memory of every German soldier unfortunate enough to encounter it. Now close your eyes and imagine another world. An alternate reality. A world where German genius, upon encountering this Russian phenomenon, did not merely copy it but digested, understood, and created its own response. A response just as refined, yet bearing all the strengths and weaknesses of its nation. A world where across the vast fields near Stalingrad and along the Kursk salient, it was not the tiger or the panther that fought, but something else. A ghost. An invisible tank that never existed. A tank that could have changed everything. This is the story of that tank. Of the VK 30.01, of the greatest what-if in World War II tank design. Shock and awe. How the T-34 upended German design bureaus. Until June 22, 1941, the German High Command was confident their armored forces were the best in the world. True, there were clumsy French Char-B tanks and unwieldy British Matildas, but blitzkrieg tactics and crew coordination did the job. The Panzer III and Panzer IV were considered the pinnacle of engineering thought. They were sufficient. Everything changed in the first weeks of Operation Barbarossa. Frontline reports grew increasingly alarming. Our shells ricochet off their armor. They go where our vehicles get stuck. They're as fast as the devil. At first, this was blamed on panic and exaggeration. But when, in October 1941 near Mtsensk, Katakov's brigade decimated the 4th Panzer Division using ambushes and the T-34's superiority, even the most ardent skeptics in Berlin understood. The game had changed. Someone else had written the new rules. The Soviet tank was not merely good. It was perfectly adapted to the war it was fighting. Wide tracks for muddy terrain. A powerful diesel engine, reliable and less prone to catching fire. Sloped armor, increasing the chance of deflection. A simple, even crude design enabling mass production by factories evacuated to the Urals. Panic quietly spread through German headquarters. They needed an answer, and immediately, a special technical commission was formed to study captured T-34s. What did they find when they dismantled the Soviet medium tank down to the last bolt? Their reports were filled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, admiration for the simplicity and genius of its solutions. On the other, bewilderment and even disdain for its manufacturing quality. Interior fittings were rough, welds uneven, and crew conditions barely survivable. A German engineer, raised on traditions of precision and quality, viewed it as an artist might view crude brushstrokes by a savage. He saw a brilliant idea executed with barbaric methods. And here arose the first fatal dilemma. Direct copying? The Germans tried. A T-34 built in Germany. But they hit technological limits. Germany lacked sufficient aluminum for diesel engines of the required power. It lacked reserves of high-quality rubber for road wheels. Its industry, geared toward jewel-like precision, could not shift to the Russian method. As long as it works, beauty comes later. Thus, a Solomon-like decision was made. Do not copy, but understand. Take the philosophy of the T-34 and clothe it in German technological garb. A competition was launched for a new medium tank for the Wehrmacht, codenamed VK-30. a vehicle weighing approximately 30 tons. Battle of the Titans. 4 paths to one ghost. 4 giants of German industry entered the race. 4 competing philosophies for visions of war. Henschel, the conservatives. Their VK 30.01H was a logical evolution of the Panzer IV. A recognizable shape, the traditional German boxy hull design, but with new features, such as overlapping road wheels for smoother travel. This was an evolutionary path, a step forward, not a leap. Porsche, the genius innovator obsessed with electricity. Professor Ferdinand Porsche always marched to his own drum. His VK 30.01P was interesting but overly complex and controversial. Porsche already envisioned heavier machines, and his project quickly faded, becoming the ancestor of the famous Tiger P. He was playing a different game, while others fought for the contract. Man, their VK 30.02M was a middle ground, not as conservative as Henschel's, nor as radical as the next contender. It already hinted at features of the future Panther, certain armor slopes, a powerful gun. It was a rational, compromise solution. Daimler-Benz, and finally, the hero of our story. Their VK 30.01D was a true revolution. Daimler-Benz engineers, tipping their hats to their Soviet counterparts' genius, went all in. They didn't just adopt sloped armor. They made it the core of the entire design. Their tank, upon closer inspection, bore a striking resemblance to the T-34. The same streamlined shape, the same rounded turret contours, the same rational armor angles. Economic insight. The price of genius in total war. To understand why this choice mattered so much, consider the Third Reich's economy in late 1941 and early 1942. Germany was fighting a two-front war. Its industry was running at full capacity, yet resources were limited. Steel, non-ferrous metals, fuel, all were counted carefully. In 1942, a single T-34 cost approximately 270 to 290,000 rubles. Converted into Reichsmarks and adjusted for differing purchasing power and material costs, this was roughly 2 to 2.5 times cheaper than a German Panzer IV at the time. Production output. The USSR, through immense effort, reached a rate of over 2,000 T-34s per month. Germany, by contrast, produced all tank types combined at a rate of only 5 to 700 units. Logistics. The German armored fleet consisted of dozens of different models, each requiring its own spare parts. Imagine a frontline mechanic needing parts for Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs, Czech Pragas, and captured French tanks. It was a logistical nightmare. The Daimler-Benz project offered a solution. It was cheaper to produce than its rivals. It used a diesel engine, promising savings on scarce gasoline. Its design was simpler. Essentially, Germany was being offered its own improved T-34, one that could be mass-produced by the thousands, standardizing the fleet and simplifying logistics. This was a chance to win the war, not through the quality of a single super tank, but through the quantity of thousands of very good ones. VK 30.01, a German soul in a Russian body, a detailed breakdown of the legendary machine. Let's mentally climb inside this steel ghost and understand what made it so special. Armor, the art of deflection. For the first time in German tank design, armor was not merely thick, it was intelligent. The front hull plate was sloped at 60 degrees, effectively increasing its thickness from 50 millimeters to nearly 100. But it wasn't just about numbers, it was philosophy. The philosophy of not absorbing the blow, but deflecting it. German engineers, who had always believed material strength was paramount, suddenly discovered the magic of geometry. It was an epiphany. Armament, a long and accurate reach. The main gun was to be the legendary 75mm KWK 42L/70. This cannon was a ballistic masterpiece, a long barrel, extremely high muzzle velocity, phenomenal accuracy. It could destroy any enemy tank at distances up to 1.5 kilometers while remaining virtually invulnerable to return fire. By comparison, The standard T-34 76 gun of that period was effective only up to 5 to 800 meters. Imagine a German tank lying in ambush at a forest's edge, methodically destroying Soviet tank columns without ever letting them close to firing range. This offered colossal tactical superiority. Suspension, simplicity as a virtue. While Mann and Henschel opted for complex, expensive torsion bar suspensions, Daimler-Benz engineers chose good old leaf springs. Why? Because any factory, even one with minimal specialization, could produce them. They could be easily repaired in the field. This was a philosophy worthy of the Russians. Reliable, reparable, mass-producible. Engine, a diesel heart. Another challenge to German tradition. The VK 30.01D was designed around the diesel MB 507 engine. Diesel is more fuel efficient, offering greater range. It is less flammable. Diesel fuel doesn't ignite as easily as gasoline upon tank penetration. This decision was directly inspired by the T-34 and was absolutely correct for operations across the vast Soviet territories. Crew and habitability. Achilles' heel? Here, problems began. The German emphasis on crew comfort, even relative, clashed with the streamlined shape. The turret on the VK 30.01D was rather cramped. The commander, gunner, and loader would have had to squeeze into tighter quarters than in Mann's more spacious turret. For German tankers accustomed to a certain standard, this was a serious drawback. But ask yourself, was it truly critical? Soviet tank crews fought in far harsher conditions and achieved outstanding results. Perhaps this wasn't a flaw of the machine, but of mindset. Technical specifications, in words as requested. Combat weight, 35 tons. Hull length, approximately 9 meters. Maximum speed, up to 56 kilometers per hour. Operational range, up to 195 kilometers and up to 250 with external fuel tanks. Crew, 5 personnel. The vehicle was balanced, fast, well-armed, and relatively simple. It seemed a perfect candidate. But conspiracy against genius. Why the VK 30.01D was forgotten. Here, our ghost story ends, and a detective tale of political intrigue, ambition, and fatal errors begins. Reason 1. Comfort over effectiveness. The Waffenamt, Weapons Office, commission consisted of old-school generals and engineers. They climbed into Daimler's cramped turret and disliked it. Mann's turret was roomier and more comfortable. This seemingly minor factor outweighed all advantages in armor, cost, and production simplicity. It was a choice favoring tactical convenience over strategic soundness. Reason 2. Logistical conservatism. The Mann project, the future Panther, used the same Maybach HL 230 gasoline engine as the Tiger. To supply officers, this was music to their ears. One engine type for 2 tank models. Fewer headaches with spare parts and mechanic training. They didn't care that Daimler's diesel would be more advantageous in the long run. They cared about reports here and now. Reason 3. The Panther's wide stride. Mann's design featured wider tracks, reducing ground pressure. On paper, this offered better mobility in Russian mud. Yet considering the VK 30.01's similarity to the T-34, which had no such mobility issues, this argument seems contrived. Reason 4. And the main one, the Führer's madness. Adolf Hitler, increasingly detached from reality and obsessed with gigantomania, increasingly favored wonder weapons. He was drawn to monsters like the mouse or the tiger. He loved everything enormous, heavy, and terrifying in appearance. The sleek, streamlined, Russian-inspired VK 30.01D did not match his aesthetic of imperial grandeur. He demanded 100mm armor and 88mm guns. He no longer considered that 1,000 good tanks were better than 100 excellent ones. His mind was clouded by megalomaniacal projects. In this atmosphere, Daimler-Benz rational, economical, and practical design was doomed. Analysis and reflection. What did we lose? History knows no subjunctive mood. But let us speculate. What if Hitler and his generals had chosen differently? The VK 30.01D could have entered mass production 6 months to a year earlier than the Panther. Production would have ramped up faster. By the summer of 1943, by the time of the Battle of Kursk, the Wehrmacht might have fielded not a few hundred brand new, but green Panthers plagued by teething problems, but 2,000 to 3,000 battle-tested, reliable VK 30.01D tanks. The outcome at Prokhorovka might have been entirely different. Germans would not have suffered constant breakdowns of transmissions and engines, as plagued early Panthers. Their tanks would have been easier to repair. Their logistics would have been more efficient. Perhaps this would not have altered the war's ultimate outcome. The industrial might of the USSR and the Allies was too great. But the price of victory would have been immeasurably higher, measured in hundreds of thousands of additional lives. A single prototype of the VK 30.01D was indeed built. It survived the war, only to vanish into oblivion. It remained a silent ghost, an alternative that never came to be. Its spirit, its ideas, sloped armor, powerful gun, were inherited by the Panther. But the Panther was a different tank, heavier, more complex, more expensive. It was a product of the very system that ultimately consumed the Third Reich from within. A system of gigantomania, insane ambition, and an unwillingness to embrace simple, brilliant solutions from others. The VK 30.01 is not only a monument to engineering genius, it is also a monument to human folly, stubbornness, and the inability to abandon prejudice even in the face of impending catastrophe. And so concludes our saga of the Ghost Tank, the unrealized dream of the German High Command. This story once again proves that wars are won not only on battlefields, but also in designers' offices and the minds of rulers. But what do you think? Did the VK 30.01D truly have a chance to alter the course of the war? Or was its fate sealed from the start? Perhaps you know other examples of alternative weapons? Please be sure to share your opinion in the comments. We truly value your thoughts. And of course, if this story gripped you as deeply as it did me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like. Your engagement is the signal that we're doing meaningful work, unraveling history's secrets together. Dozens of untold stories await us ahead. Stay with us. It's going to be fascinating.